So DeLa was just giving you a little bit of the plot. It's just imagine if Kevin McAllister got home alone in the poltergeist house.
How are you?
We're doing well.
Pretty well.
Yeah.
It's the time of year where we get a little nutty.
What do you mean?
Well, first, the writing process is, have you seen The Shining? And so that kind of puts us into our, we commit to the show, and it is showtime now. And
We
it's
take
like
turns being Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall, though.
And we, for 4 months, it's like we live in our holiday show.
So Christmas for you growing up, were you watching these sort of holiday specials? Was this part of your...
Oh, yeah. It's funny because DeLa and I play distinct characters on stage. DeLa loves Christmas. I hate Christmas. But our actual backstories are the exact opposite. My family was insane and just... It was a circus.
What do you mean?
But I was raised poor.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised by single women who were overburdened single mothers, and then also just a bunch of weird people.
Mm-hmm.
We're weirdos.
So when Christmas came around, what was that like?
Christmas came around, and it was like the one time of year we acted like just a normal, loving family, and everything was calm and delightful. But also, my grandma was the type to just take in everyone who didn't have somewhere to be. So Christmas was the time when all our extended family came together, all the friends of the family. And I didn't know it, but my grandma taught me about chosen family within my given family.
Right. Your grandmother, because she was so welcoming and would bring in people who didn't have anywhere else to go, or some people who didn't find a home or didn't find somewhere warm and welcome for them. She didn't know it at the time, but
she was setting me up to then recognize the same thing in what DeLa had already been doing when we met. She's been a producer her whole career.
Yeah.
And we met in Seattle with her doing a holiday show she was producing then, and she invited me into it. And that was many years before we created this holiday show together. But I learned the concept of chosen family as a queer person very much through doing the holidays with BenDeLaCreme. And now I'm reflecting on all of it. And yeah, it's like I take the experiences I had as a kid that my grandma gave to me, and I pay it forward through this show now. Because I was one of the fortunate queer kids in Portland, Oregon, who had a family who loved me, my flamboyant, clearly queer self. I was a visibly queer, visibly trans kid since birth. It just took me time to realize it. So I get to take that feeling and give that to my audiences now. And DeLa can talk about her own experiences getting there.
The feeling, the vibe, I'm no Columbo. I don't know if you knew that.
This is the first I'm hearing.
I know you came in and you were like, is he Columbo?
I was like, Peter Falk.
Is he Peter Falk?
It looks different.
Is that
I don't
Peter
know.
Falk? Yeah, he's not. He looks worse.
Hardly.
What I'm inferring there is that Christmas growing up, you don't have to talk about this if you don't want.
Oh, yeah, no.
Not a pleasant.
Well, I had a very specific type of Christmas that was certainly, there are people who had more unpleasant Christmas experiences than me. I grew up in sort of rural New England. I come from a long line of Putnams, so you can look to the Crucible for more information on that.
It's triggering to me as a witch.
Yeah. The family was very picturesque. My Christmases when I was young were very Norman Rockwell. And we were in this big sort of rambling farmhouse that had been in my family for generations, and everyone would descend, and there'd be lots of presents and singing around the pine tree that we chopped down together.
Wow,
And
very pastoral,
Yes.
very American Christmas.
exactly the images on the cards.
Yeah.
But as in my youth, there were a lot of different factors that played into this. One of them was me being very queer in a family that was not ready for that, but there were quite a few others where the whole thing was falling apart and everyone was still clinging to it. So everyone was becoming divided. Everyone was disagreeing. Everyone was fighting. So going home for the holidays became something I just absolutely dreaded. And so I actually created my first Christmas show. And, bless my father, he's a wonderful person and he tried very hard. And so I hate for him to hear this, but I created my first Christmas show specifically so I'd have a job so that I couldn't go home for Christmas. It was, so
this is in Seattle, right?
This was in Seattle, and we created a Christmas show that we did on Christmas Eve. And the first time we did it, I think we did 2 nights, and one of them was Christmas Eve, and about 40 people showed up. And a lot of them were queer folks who did not have a place to go.
So you sort of create an alternate Christmas gathering.
And by needing that myself and providing that for myself, I started to learn how many other people needed it and how many people feel really alienated at the time of the year that's talking about homecoming and is talking about family, and that we need to establish that for ourselves, and that these sort of traditions that my family was clinging to despite no one enjoying it, those traditions, as soon as they don't serve us, we need to create our own. And so that's really where this all stems from.
And is that where this stems from? Like this show we're talking about here today, does that stem from that same sort of impulse as well?
Well, every year we write a brand new show, which is kind of insane.
Yeah.
It's especially with the standards we set for our own work. We both, as solo artists, are very rigorous and very we're very staunch about how we present our art. And then when we join forces, you can imagine it's a Virgo and a Virgo Libra cusp, if that means anything to you.
My astrology's...
Don't worry, it
okay.
just means 2 nerds who are 2 nerds, one's even
Fussy
nerdier.
nerds.
2 fussy nerds. See, if this was the horoscope in the paper, I'd be much better off. If you just said you're a fussy nerd every day to me, that'd be great.
2 fussy nerds. Who are also, they believe that the fussiness pays off, and it does. So, but I got it talking about astrology.
No, but you were
mean,
talking about the idea that the 2 stories you told me about your both of your family traditions growing up, learning about chosen family, is what led to this thing coming together.
Yeah, it's as Jinkx said, when I was doing those shows before in Seattle, she started being part of them, and we did become part of each other's chosen family in that way. We were spending many holidays together. And then when we decided to do this for the first time, we knew that despite the fact that we're bringing something really new to it, and, Jinkx and I have a fun odd couple dynamic, which really just sort of naturally tumbled out of the characters we developed on stage. We always knew that, you can sing a bunch of fun songs and you can tell a lot of body jokes, but at the end of the day, it's what it's about. The foundation of it has to be really meaningful, and it has to be genuine, and because that's what people really are needing. And all the music and humor is a wonderful respite from this dark world that we're in. It's a chance to take a little break from all of it, but it also needs to be nourishing. But the bottom line always remains that this is a show, an event that is about community.
The show is about, this year, it's about how you can't stop doing the show. Is that right?
Yes. Okay. So, and that's what I was... Before I trailed off with witchcraft and astrology, but
hey, I learned about Libras. Things are good. I'm with you.
Yes, we write from an autobiographical place every year, but we take everything we do to the surreal and the absurd because we're drag queens.
Yeah.
This year, again, is very reflective, and it's about, we told everyone, create your own holiday tradition. If your old traditions don't serve you, create a new one. And now, 6 years deep into a holiday tradition we created, we have to ask ourselves, is this still serving us? And I think the answer is a resounding yes, but we had to do the whole journey to get there.
Is that born out of truth? Is that born out of an actual...
Oh, yeah. I mean, every year we have to figure out how do we make this something that still resonates for us, right? And so the show this year, you know, we have I hate to spoil it for people, but it's but we essentially have the show gain sentience and we become trapped within it. We decide we're going to take the year off because we've sort of lost the thread of why we started doing this, and the show will not let us leave, and we have to keep finding, okay, what are the ways that we can perform in order to end this show. But the narrative came out of us. You know, I mean, what it's about is us having to do the work to come back to what was the intention? Why did we do this? Does it still resonate? And that is the truth. It's something we have to revisit every year, and it's something that becomes more of a question every year.
What was the answer this year?
Oh, hell yes. So DeLa was just giving you a little bit of the plot. It's just, imagine if Kevin McAllister got home alone in the poltergeist house.
It's like Chuck Jones, Daffy Duck, Duck-a-Muck episode, and Faust.
Yeah, well, that one makes more sense to me. Yeah, that one. Well, now I got it. Now I understand it. That was
You and I don't have any shared references. We're gonna have to.
I feel like I really only got the Kevin McAllister one. I really feel like that was. I really just, that's the only one I understood. The Kevin McAllister one. All I understand is Macaulay Culkin every day.
Yeah.
That's it. You know.
He seems cool.
He's really relatable. I feel like I grew up with him.
Yeah, he did torture those poor robbers, though.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think all of our parents had to warn us not to do that. I certainly would have.
You know, marbles on the that hurt. You know what I mean? And you iron on your face.
Can I even tell you how many old paint cans were in the basement of that old farmhouse I grew up in? I mean, I had a lot of ammo.
You could have swung that paint can like you wouldn't believe. You could have Kevin
taken on an
McAllister
army.
the hell out of everybody.
We only had one door to our place. No, I'm joking.
It was
easy
a
to
window.
guard.
You were on Broadway this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that it was Chicago, right? Chicago?
Yes, it was.
Does doing a role like that, do you bring any of that to this show? Do you bring anything you've learned from that? I mean, that's a whole different ballgame, right?
I love bringing things I learn from every show into the next show, you know? I just feel so ready to be a performer right now because of the experience on Broadway. I made this my goal for so much of my life, and then I met the goal, and it was 10 times better than I even dreamed of. So it was this beautiful affirmation, but then also this realization when these amazing audiences would show up for me. The queer audiences that showed up on Broadway were just so loud and boisterous and joyful, and they celebrated every performer and every performance. And the Broadway performers who have been doing this for decades would come off and say, we have never had audiences like that. And those are the audiences I'm used to. So to be in this institution and realize that I brought something with me from the work that DeLa and I do together, the foundation that we've laid down over the years, to the institution of Broadway, and then those performers were appreciative of it, and they told me that it was like, it's the most fun we've had doing the show in a while. And that's my job. Like, I get to have fun on stage in front of people with a purpose.
I love what you said there, because it wasn't how I was thinking about it. You're right. I was thinking about it, okay, well, Jinkx does Broadway. What does she bring from Broadway to the touring show? But what you're telling me here is that you actually brought something from this show and from your own experience and from coming up doing drag shows. You brought that to Broadway.
Yeah.
You put that in the language Broadway.
And then what I brought from Broadway to this show is just kind of, at long last, trusting myself. Imposter syndrome's it really messes with you,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
you can do something like win RuPaul's Drag Race 2 times and still think, everyone's wrong. It's a mistake. I lucked out. I fell backwards.
I'm going to get found out. They're going to find out that I'm,
something about, just like having that really formative experience. Oh, something like having a really formative experience. Just, I don't know what it is about it. But no, I just feel really galvanized. I feel really bolstered. And I think DeLa can agree that what I brought from Broadway, besides all of that, is a newfound punctuality.
That I can absolutely agree with.
Is that true? Is that the case?
It is the case. Jinkx has never been, being on time has never been any
It's
drag
always
queen's
eluded
number
me.
one skill set. But I also have to say that everything in terms of Jinkx bringing what she learned from Broadway, I mean, certainly it's like her level of professionalism continues to excel, but she's always had those skill sets. I mean, I met Jinkx when she was straight out of college, and the pipes on her, the power she has on stage, it's always been there. And quite frankly, Broadway was lucky to have her.
Always get along right from the very beginning when you...
We work at it.
Significant relationships, you have to work at it, and that's just how it is. We've never been romantically entwined, but our relationship has...
In case that's what you were thinking.
No. I just like to, I'm an open book anyway. So. But we actually have a funny origin story, which is that one of DeLa's good friends said to her, "Watch out for Jinkx. I have a feeling she's going to all about Eve you." Now, with that in mind... Oh, you got that one. Okay. Good.
There's 2 references. Kevin McAllister and All About Eve. I don't know what that says about me. I wouldn't want that to be on my profile. Go on. That's fine.
So, with that in mind, basically when we first met, I was in awe.
Well,
And she said,
may I tell the story?
Go
of
for it.
So the first time I met Jinkx, she had a mentor at school named Kara McDonald who had seen my work around Seattle and invited me to start developing solo work for a solo festival that she was running. And she had told us about each other. And we had not met yet. And I heard about Jinkx from, I think it was MySpace, doing a show.
That's another reference I get, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
She and her music partner, Major Scales, were doing a show at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in a Starbucks for free. Wow. And I showed up to this thing because, Kira had sort of told me about her, and I showed up with a friend, and there were, maybe 10 folding chairs and a keyboard, and, Jinkx and Major came out of, the bathroom with the keypad on it, that was their dressing room. And, in this humble environment with milk being steamed behind us, proceeded to give one of the most incredible performances I've ever seen. I mean, this was an early incarnation of the Vaudevillians, which went on to have multiple off-Broadway extensions. And I sat there, I love drag. I've loved drag since I was in my adolescence. I've seen a few performers who just inspire me and excite me. I watched her perform. I leaned over to my friend and I said, "We are either going to work together and become friends, or we are going to become adversaries." And I walked up to her. I said, "I would love to work with you." I handed her an actual paper business card.
And I was in awe. I was like, a drag queen with a business card?
And, and that year, I cast her in the holiday show I was doing at the time. And, we're both big people with big personalities, but we're also, I think, have in common that we're thoughtful and strive to be.
We've just always recognized each other's superpowers.
Yeah.
And we choose to be a team rather than to let anything pit us against each other.
And I've been thinking a lot lately about how when you're a young queer person and you sort of are very visibly queer or different, or and I think this applies to many people who are not queer as well. But Jinkx and I sort of share this like channeling of the divine feminine, as I like to think of it. And when you're young, you're sent two messages. You are a freak. You're too different. These differences are bad. And then there are those people who see you and say, no, you're special. These things about you are special. And there are these two polar opposite messages you receive. So when you find someone else in the world like you can either go with, oh crap, there's someone else like me, I'm no longer special. Or you can go with, oh crap, there's someone else like me. And I think that that's something that you have to continue to cultivate and find that gratitude that you're not alone and not have that messaging be you're not as special anymore.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Jinkx, that DeLa has been producing shows for a really, really long time. There was a line in your press release that stuck out to me about that. It was this. Too often, queer and drag stories are written and produced by people outside of the community. The Jinkx DeLa Holiday Show and BenDeLaCreme Presents is a reminder why authentic queer storytelling is not only necessary, but should be widely celebrated. I didn't know that queer and drag stories are often produced by people outside of the community. I mean, what does it mean for you to have that kind of creative control here?
Well, I mean, it's amazing. It's what I've always wanted and sort of what I've always done. I think that, it is true that with the popularity of drag increasing in the last decade,
right,
people have seen this as anything that becomes a moneymaker brings in outside folks who want to make the money off of it, and doesn't necessarily matter what it is.
People who would never have touched it 30, 40 years ago,
exactly.
All of a sudden there's a few bucks to be made, and all of a sudden they're showing up wanting to produce drag shows.
Exactly.
Right.
And so we see a lot of that now. And but the thing that drew me to drag initially, one of the many things, was that drag queens sort of are forced to be auteurs. Like they have to do everything because that's how drag was always done. There was no, now some people think of drag as a route to become rich and famous. When we started drag, it was a guarantee you would never be rich or famous, and probably nobody would ever want to date you. It was a lot of things that you had to want it so bad that you did it anyway, and that meant that you had to scrap to find the venue, to create the music, to write the words, to get to light the lights, you had to do every aspect of it, hot glue together your costumes. And
what I want to say is, like, because we do all of that, then the vultures come in. Because we will show up with our own costume, our own script written, our own material. Then these people come in, make themselves a middleman. They might have the money to front the project.
Upfront production costs.
Yeah, and that's what they wave around, but all they're doing is coming in to get a slice of something that you've poured your heart and soul into. Yeah. And that's, the dilemma of this industry. So anytime that artwork can be made by the artist and produced by the artist and distributed by the artist, starring the artist, that is the best kind of art to support, because there is no exploitative middleman getting his cut for doing.
And as an artist,
shag all, yeah.
And as artists, it is what we were drawn to, and it can be hard to maintain that kind of control with the industry that it becomes. And as it's become so much larger, working on obviously a much larger scale now, and it is just so deeply rewarding to be able to maintain that control, which really only happens because of the community sensibility we've built. These are people who have always believed in it, and so they're really in it to make it happen. And that is how you get to grow something that really remains meaningful into something this large. And everybody wants to protect it, and everyone wants to defend it from outside, those who would thwart us. But because it means something to everyone involved.
I had never thought about the vultures side of it. Who did we talk to just a couple of months ago? Sasha Velour. We talked to Sasha Velour just a couple of weeks ago, and Sasha and I were talking a little bit about like what it means to do drag right now. What does it mean to do drag? Safety around doing drag right now. Physical safety around doing drag right now. And I was wondering, how much are you two thinking about that when you walk on stage? Are you thinking at all about? I had never considered that there's also just like there's interlopers everywhere you go now as a drag performer.
Oh yeah, I mean we've really had to double down on security, especially in the U.S.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, and it's just another fun production logistic that we get to think about on our end. But yeah, I mean, we unfortunately, as queer performers, are targets, and unfortunately in the U.S., it's like you can be anyone and still be a target. But we, specifically have to be more careful, and so our team has really, worked hard to make sure that all of our venues have. Unfortunately, we need to do bag searches, wanding, extra security, all of this kind of thing, which seems upsetting and scary, but what it does is it creates the ability for people, both our people on stage, but the people in the audience who live in a world where they don't feel safe, to come in and know that we are taking care of them in every possible way.
Yeah.
And for 2 hours, you get to be here and know that this room is just all about protecting and loving you.
There's people at the doors going to stop anything from. That's a moment to feel safe. That's a powerful thing.
Yeah, society isn't set up for queer people, period. Some cultures are better than others. But it's just from birth to death, if you are a queer person, you have to carve out your own path, essentially. And it gets easier with each generation, and we've seen a lot of progress. But we are still not at a place where your whole life isn't affected by... that's why our community is so strong, is when you are a queer person, the whole rest of the world has labeled you one way, and it's not necessarily a good thing. But in the queer community, that means you are never alone as long as you find another queer person.
And another flip side of it is that there are no rules for you to follow, and as Jinkx said, many queer people are sort of forced to forge their own paths, and you also get to forge your own path. You don't have to worry about the rules that some people believe to be true, and we get to do it ourselves. And that's where, as Jinkx said, we derive our strength, and that rule breaking is exactly how drag queens and queer people have gotten through dark periods in the past where they have been ostracized, and it is exactly how we're going to get through this period.
Yeah. People who think that, gender is natural just need to look at fashion through history and look that, like, the way we are dressed used to be the masculine way to present,
throw a little powder on this wig.
Yeah, like wearing a wig, wearing velvet and like peacocking, and it's just that, we live in constraints long enough that it starts to feel like, well, this is the way it's always been. So of course people are resistant to me living my own life because I go against what's natural. That's just what's natural now, and the only way we make a new natural is all of us saying we're done with pretending like because of something someone decided when we were born that gets to dictate the rest of our life.
What a gift then that you are able to give these couple of hours to people who do feel that way, especially around the holidays. Lovely to meet the two of you. Thanks for doing that.
It's so wonderful chatting with you.
I'd love to chat with you as well. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.